You slowly descend down into the dungeon. You kind of smile to yourself. You've been here before. You know how these things work. There's going to be a trap up ahead, and probably not too long after that, a hidden doorway. Hi there, I'm Dr. Megan Connell, and this is Psychology at the Table. This is going to be the first in a short series that we're going to do where we're going to talk about how our brain works, how our mind operates, and how that can impact playing games. Now, to be clear here, when I say brain, I'm actually not talking about the physiological structure of the brain. I'm more talking about the cognitive functions that our brain engages in so that we can interact with the world around us. I'm going to be talking in really overgeneralized and simplified terminology here and giving really simplified examples. Understand that everything we're going to talk about is way more complicated. I'm just trying to give you guys the gist of how our mind works, and so that you can use that to help bring your players into your game better and help you understand your own behaviors around gaming and how you run the game. To start off with, I want to talk about our scripts for the world around us. Basically, how we understand and interact with the world. We call these schemas. We develop our schemas as we interact and go out into the world. The first time you walked into a store, you didn't know what to expect. You learned that there was a cash register. You learned about shelves of items and goods that were put in some sort of order and categorized together. You used that knowledge of one store and you brought it into the next, and to the next, and to the next, and every time thereafter until you've developed a fairly robust schema about what stores can look like. Without even needing to understand what store you're walking into, your mind is going to be able to give you a lot of information about that store before you even walk into the door, because you've been through so many other stores before. Now, this is something that we might not even think about. We think, what's the big deal? Our brain learns from going and having experiences and uses that previous knowledge. Well, the cool thing with schemas is it's not something that we're consciously doing. We don't have to walk into a store and be like, okay, let me bring up every memory of every other store I've been into. Our brain just develops these scripts and it automatically runs them for us when we go into these situations. It's really helpful and a great time saver for us, because if we didn't have them, every time you went somewhere, you would have to learn it all from scratch. You wouldn't be able to take any of your previous knowledge and utilize it in the situation that you're in. So how does this apply to gaming and playing? Well, every player at the table has their own schemas and scripts for how the world works, both the real world that we all are living and playing in, how games are run, and also the world that you're developing, the fantasy setting that you're working in. And so this, as a dungeon master, is important to understand. If there are things in the world that you're creating that are vastly different from the world we live in, you probably want to let your players know that. So for example, if something that's common here, like music, say, maybe it's outlawed in the world that you're in, and being a bard is something that is frowned upon, especially if you sing. Storytellers are welcome, but singers, performers, no, that's not something that's commonly done in this world. And letting the players know this kind of helps them understand what schemas that they have about this world that can apply and also don't apply to the fantasy setting that you're playing in. As for playing the game, it's really important to understand that when we have gaming experiences, we build on those gaming experiences to help us understand how to act and how to behave at the table. If a player is coming to a table and they've never played a tabletop role-playing game before, part of that anxiety is going to be they don't have a schematic script to use to understand how to act and what to do at the table. And so if you have new players at your table, sitting down and explaining to them what's expected and what you will do and what things are going to look like really can help to lessen that anxiety, because then their brain can start developing that schematic script that they're going to use. Also, when you are running a game, letting your players know what running a game looks like for you. So some gaming tables let lots of crosstalk happen. In some situations, it's normal when you're doing an attack to roll your damage dice while you're rolling your attack. Other tables, that's not allowed. So we really want to understand what's expected at the table you're playing at. This can be as involved as doing a full session 0 with your players if you're planning an ongoing campaign, or just a quick little spiel that you give when you're running a game for a one-off. When I do one-offs at my local game store or at conventions, I do a quick discussion of what behaviors I expect to see at the table and what I expect out of my players and what they can expect out of me. This way we all have a clear idea of what's going to happen, and that information helps us have a game that runs smoothly. As we understand our schemas and scripts, it really helps us build the world and bring our characters into the world that you're playing in. So one of the things you can do is to think about what schematics would the characters have for the world that they play in. So an example might be, All your characters would know that the empire they grew up in, all the towns are laid out pretty much the same way. There's a water source in the middle of town that's public and open to everybody, and around that water source is going to be the open market. It's not a lot of information. That's nothing that is going to break your game or anything. You're just letting the players know things that their characters would know and understand about the world. And we can communicate this stuff, and it starts to give little clues and help build that rich, diverse world that we love to make for our players. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you. Again, a very broad, oversimplified discussion of schemas. If you have questions, please leave them below. And as always, let's make space at the table for everyone.